Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Vegan Hour on what is it, Tuesday the 11th of June, episode 11 on the 11th. That's interesting. Tonight I have mental health professional Ree Naithani. Thank you very much for coming along, Ree. We're going to be getting into talking about a very serious and important subject shortly, but first, the Vegan Hour is presented by Vegan Frothers, cruelty-free clothing. You can see the sign in the background there. So you can support Vegan Frothers, you can get cruelty-free clothing, and you're supporting animal sanctuaries at the same time. So that's oh look, Rick says, come on Ree, you can do it. She certainly can. She knows so much about mental health, she can do it. So also other sponsors of the Vegan Hour, Cess Vegan. If you've had Cess,
yes.
Oh yeah, Cess Vegan's good. Cess Vegan home delivered vegan goodies, and also Syndium natural food products as well. So let's just have a quick look before we get tonight's show underway. Let's have a look at what's coming up with events. This Friday actually is the End of Meat documentary. That sounds interesting. In Brisbane at Green Edge, 6:30 p.m. at Green Edge. That would be a good one to go to. So keep that one in mind, guys, and I'll put a link to that later. On Saturday is the Stop Live Export Awareness Day. Boy, we've got to stop live export at some point. It just goes, it drags on and on. So that's at 4:30 p.m. in Queen's Garden, Brisbane. And on Sunday, there is a charity bake sale for Cranky's Farm, also at Green Edge from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So they're the events. I will post them up on the live stream later after the live stream's finished. And tonight, Ree and I are going to be talking about mental health, and specifically in relation to our vegan journey. But it's not just this area. It encompasses the whole gamut, if that's the right word, of mental health. But first, what I want to find out, Ree, I want to find out a little bit about your vegan journey, and I want to find out about, I read here you've got a lot of experience. So you're actually a, well, I'm calling you a mental health professional. You're a mental health nurse.
Yep.
I'm calling you a mental health professional, and you've got a Bachelor of Science honours degree in mental health nursing.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it for the last 20 years in UK and Australia.
Yes.
I've got this right so far. I know what I'm on about. And Jam says, oi, I'm listening. Oh, you know who that is?
Yes, we're about 16, 17 years old from the UK.
Fantastic.
And his nephew's vegan.
Fantastic. I love it. This is great. And Olivia says, I've been so looking forward to this. I tell you what, I personally have been looking forward to tonight's episode.
Yeah.
Ree and I have been chatting before we went live, and you should have been here to hear it.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can recapture some of it, because we're on the same wavelength when it comes to this, and it's really, really fascinating subject, because if we can help people by spreading some awareness with this, that is the intention. And specifically, if we can help vegans who have experienced specific mental health issues because of our vegan journey, then we will have achieved something with tonight's episode. So tell us a little bit. You've been in a lot of different areas: emergency psychiatric assessments, child and youth mental health, eating disorders. These are all a lot of different areas you've been in there. You've worked with acute, severe and enduring mental illnesses.
Yeah.
This is pretty challenging stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do that? How do you actually manage to sort of stay sane or focused or whatever yourself when you're in such a heavy sort of environment? You have to do some self-care.
Yeah. Look, it's self-care, but it is so rewarding. The job is so rewarding.
Oh, that's good.
And it's a passion.
Because you're so passionate about it, and you have such experience with it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So you get the reward.
Jam says, I'm in a cafe eating a vegan breakfast. It's bloody horrible, I'm afraid. We might actually have to give you some mental health around that. But I'm not going to try and make jokes about that, because this is a very serious subject, and we're approaching it. The Vegan Hour is lighthearted and it's fun, but it is factual, and sometimes we want to really be completely, serious about things that are not something to be joked about. Having said that, though, laughter therapy is actually something we were
We're
talking about earlier, and can be used as a therapy
Yep.
if people are having certain issues in that.
Yep. You can actually go to workshops for laughter therapy. I've been to a couple in the UK. You were quite keen on inducing fake laughter.
I have a workshop I go to. It's called YouTube Comedians. Go to YouTube. I watch stage comedians. That's my workshop. It's free and I love it. It's fun. Or a good comedy movie or something. You know. So what? In the 20 years that you've been a mental health professional, what are the sort of changes you've seen? Are we sort of getting better in our approach, generally speaking? Is it more accepted or understood in the community? What would you say?
Yeah, look, I think there's definitely raising more awareness in particularly in certain groups of people where historically, mental health was, you just do not talk about it. For example, men.
I was about to ask what groups. Yes.
Yeah. So young men in particular who are more high risk of suicide, for example. So there's just more awareness now in the media and adverts and things like that.
What sort of age group for young men are high risk? Do you know?
Around 25 to 30. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What would be the accepted reason or understanding why that is the way it is? Is there like a reason that stands out why young men are at risk as much?
Look, there's lots, and some of the lists that some of it we're going to talk about that affects all of us.
Good. Actually, yes, we've got a few different areas to cover tonight.
But maybe also one is males and society. Historically, it's about men not crying, men being strong, men not being in touch with our emotional self.
I want to get some feedback. How many men have been brought up in that culture? I mean, I'm going to put my hand up and say, I think my old man said many times, real men don't cry, and it was it felt like a weakness to express emotions. And so if you're brought up in that environment, I know as a younger person brought up in that environment, I learnt to just not trust sharing my emotions with my father. It was easier to do it with my mother, but there's that training of the mind that comes in, and that's something that takes a long time to unlearn. If you ever unlearn it at all.
If you ever, and it does affect people then, men in retirement age. But there's something you asked, I think you asked them why suicide, particularly in that group as well. I think there's also about impulse control. Younger men have less control and can be more impulsive in their behaviours.
Is that like a peer pressure reflection of society? It's like, if it feels good, do it, let's do it now, that sort of crap,
And I think again, culture encourages men to be more reckless and be more risk-taking, whereas
with drastic
women
effect.
And girls, we have to be more careful for everything because
although that has changed in recent
changed.
times,
Absolutely.
and that's shifted the balance where women are taking risks as well.
Exactly.
And probably with
not
the
much different now with the much younger groups. It's much more balanced now.
Is it? That's actually a sad statistic if that's the case.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of comments there. Maureen says, "Hi Ree and Harry. Ree, you are amazing as a person in what you do. I recommend everyone listens to your expert knowledge." That is a beautiful comment, Maureen. And Matt says, "G'day, Mr. Harry and Ree. Love your work, Ree, and love you. You're not too bad either, Mr. Harry." Thank you, Matt. I love you too, mate. And Rick says, "My parents were great. However, the society I grew up in was not." You are very fortunate, Rick, to have parents that allowed you to express yourself without being a threat to them.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of really what it is, isn't it? It's like the parent can't handle the expression of emotion.
Yeah.
Is that true? Because that's just my layman's understanding of it.
Or again, their society, it's all historical, isn't it? Their parents probably didn't value it.
It's not what we talk about.
Yes.
It's how we were brought up. We were brought up proper, and we put our knife and fork in a certain place, and we asked to leave the table, and we don't talk about things that don't go well or whatever. Yes. Okay, I understand. That was the culture and the society. Yes. So, okay. Apart from your passion of mental health and being able to help people for the last 20 years, you're also very passionate about helping animals. as a vegan, and you work with the Animal Justice Party in that capacity, yes, and you are very appreciated by the Animal Justice Party, the members of the Animal Justice Party. You even wrote a booklet, Your Mental Health Matters.
An article.
An article, okay, an article. Well, that's more than most of us have done. But I want to find out actually, why did you become vegan? I know nothing about your vegan journey.
Yeah. Well, I had a very long journey. I envy those people who went vegan overnight. Oh wow, I know people like that, and I certainly didn't do that. Were you the overnighter? Wow.
Yeah.
So I think my first animal rights march was in 1990 in London.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
What attracted you to that march?
Well, it was Linda McCartney. Paul McCartney's wife.
Yes.
So I grew up in that era,
yes.
right? The Linda McCartney era,
yes.
and she was quite influential.
She was.
With animal rights and vegetarianism,
yes.
you know.
Yes.
So you know.
So you went along, 1990.
March, and a few of them around that time, and I became vegetarian around that time.
Right, okay, because Linda McCartney was vegetarian, not vegan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my sister, she was the main inspiration because she became vegan around that time. And so we used to go to a lot of vegan, vegetarian events and festivals all around London. So to be honest, I always knew vegetarianism didn't make sense. It didn't make sense if I was doing it for the reasons I was doing it. Veganism always made sense.
So you knew it didn't make sense because you knew of the cruelty of the dairy industry?
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And everything else about it.
Did you ever tell Linda McCartney this?
No, because I wasn't vegan myself. And you know, and that's, I suppose, went on for a long time, where I was always so inspired by vegans and my sister and what it meant,
and yet
I wasn't
why
vegan.
Not?
So and this might tie into some of the stuff we talk about as well.
Yeah.
For me, I think it was a combination. There's a whole heaps of stuff, but one thing I know what helped. I think maybe if I talk about, I know what helped.
Okay. Yeah.
So what I should probably say is that I moved to Australia about 10 years ago, and that's where I made a more committed effort to transition. But I kept going back, even with eating eggs for a few months.
Oh, really?
And then I would go for months and months and months vegan, and then have slips of eating chocolate.
Right.
And this is, for me, so the things that helped was stress management, managing my own self-care, managing my own stress, my own mental health, and just keeping sound that way, because I knew my mental health, it was dependent on it. I knew it never felt right being a vegetarian, because I wasn't a vegetarian. Didn't make sense.
This is interesting. So you had a very strong awareness that you wanted to be vegan, but you were still finding it a challenge to get there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have compassion for those people
yes,
who really struggle, because I was one of them.
That is amazing. Yeah.
So
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say. So one was managing my own stress, but the other thing was support. So like getting back into sort of activism, where there was people that were like-minded and were supportive. So the lovely people in AJP and in Animal Liberation Queensland, they were also non-judgmental. You know, and
fantastic.
And that just helped me through.
I love that.
It just helped.
Because acceptance is what helps us grow and change.
Because then you silence it and you just deal with it on your own, and then you're not involved in anything with it, and you're just in your own internal conflict with it.
There's a couple of comments here I want to get to, because they're coming in thick and fast. Rick says that Ree rules the Animal Justice Party Gold Coast. Christine says, "What's the name of the article you wrote, please, Ree?"
Oh, Mental Health Matters. It's
Mental
in the
Health
2018 Animal Justice Party membership booklet, which can be sent out on an email. If you
there you go. And Ali says, "Hooray, Ree, you make the world a more beautiful place to be."
Oh,
there is so much love on tonight's show. That's beautiful. See, you obviously give it out because you're getting it back, you see. And Sarah says, "Hi, Ree and Harry, watching from Victoria." Hey, Sarah, how are you? Okay.
Yeah.
So how many years ago was it you finally were able to sort of commit fully? 10 years ago?
No, only maybe 3 or 4 years. Without any slips.
Without any slips.
Because it would be months, and then bang.
I want to ask you, when you say you slip up, when you say you ate eggs or maybe something else.
No, it wasn't. It was chocolate. So
Chocolate.
the eggs was,
You know, we do have vegan chocolate.
Well, now exactly. But 4 years ago, it was for me.
Hard to find.
And that's.
You should have sent me a message and asked me where to
No,
get it. Anyway.
no. And see, it wasn't even so much because you can go and get something if you want it.
Yes.
You can get any product if you want it. Even 4 years ago, it
Yes.
was my hormones, feeling stressed, feeling whatever with what was going on,
So
and then it wouldn't matter. It was all about me.
Yeah. So
and
you
I needed
to
that
work
there and then, and I needed to work on me.
Yeah.
And take care of me, what was going on with me emotionally, and now it's effortless. It's just like
I love that.
It's like a dream.
It's
it is my dream, childhood dream come true. Because remember, in 1990, when I went to my first Animal Rights March.
That's 29 years ago. Wow.
I'm 29 now.
That's I'm not doing any comebacks. What struck me is very, very interesting is that how that passion and that and being able to work on yourself is an extension of the way that you love to help others and help them to find themselves in that, and you had to bring it back to yourself. Is it true to say, in one of the observations I've made in talking to mental health professionals, whether they're psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, anyone that works in that area, and I've spoken to a few over the years, I've found that when I get to know them personally, there's a very good reason why that field was of interest to them in the first place. Yeah. And it's usually a personal reason. Is that fair to say? I'm not saying it's necessarily your situation, but have you noticed that working in the field, that a lot of the people that are working in that field are because they've faced their own challenges, they've needed to sort of work on them, and there's been a real interest in trying to understand why the challenges were there, how can I better myself, and then how can I help others?
And if you can seek that support, work on yourself, evolve, how great is that for you to then help someone, because you have greater empathy, you're just so much more self-aware, you can it
is the best thing there is. It's service to others. There is nothing better. I mean, as a vegan, it's sort of like service to the animals, but it's even an extension of that. It's service to all living beings. So as a vegan mental health worker, you're on the highest platform. It doesn't get any higher than that. And Sherry says, good evening, Ree and Harry, you go girl. And Olivia says, love hearing your story, Ree. You're an inspiration to me in many ways. So much love here tonight. It is so much love. It is fantastic. So, okay, so we've established a little bit about your background and your experience and all that. And you're currently working as a trans, I can't even pronounce it. Please tell. Transcranial, is it?
Magnetic stimulation.
I had to Google it to figure out what it was, and I went, "Oh, that's actually interesting."
Yeah, it's interesting.
And is it an effective?
I think
just for those who missed it, it is actually pronounced transcranial magnetic stimulation practitioner. So that's somebody that does transcranial magnetic stimulation, and if you Google it, you'll see what that is. I saw a picture of like a bed sort of thing, with things behind, and I read a little blurb about what they do. It looked like a modern version of electric shock.
Don't say it.
Sorry.
It's actually not ECT. It's actually using using magnetic field, and we're stimulating our neurons and reorganizing our pathways. And it's all based on the principles of plasticity. And it's non-invasive, so there's no medication involved. You're fully awake. You're fully and it's really quite getting brilliant results all around Australia. And at the
is it a new thing?
It's been around for forever.
Oh, is it? Okay.
However, it's got more neuroscience. And what they were noticing in other areas of health was that the benefits to people's cognitive states, so making people a bit more alert, better concentration, less forgetful, and these are all actually symptoms of depression, actually, where people feeling foggy-headed, lack of clarity, that their thought processes slow down. So they're actually noticing the side effects of that brain stimulation was then actually helping your cognitive state, but also then your mood. So now we use it. So it's not approved everywhere. Mainly private
private practices,
but also Gold Coast Uni have it, so it is in public places as well. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And what sort of person would come along? Somebody that maybe is feeling depressed?
Depressed and anxious.
And anxious.
The most affected,
And it has good results. Wow, this is interesting. It's one of the few things I've never done. We were talking about all the different things in my journey before we went live of trying to discover myself, and we all in some way do this. We try to discover why life on this planet can be painful at times. Some of us spend a lifetime digging deeper and deeper to try and find the answers, and some of us just resort to drinking or something like that, which is a sad reality, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And in fact, we're going to talk
as a coping,
mechanism. Yes, and unfortunately, is it true to say that is the majority of people do that, or not? Do you know statistics on that or not?
On the Gold Coast, there's a high stats of drug and alcohol use. That's for sure. On the Gold Coast, so there's certain areas that it's more so.
And when you wake up,
Australia wide compared to other sort of more.
It's pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, addictions.
And when you wake up the next morning, the problem's still there.
Yeah.
Problem's worse, actually.
Yeah, because you're struggling then with the brain chemistry that changes and all the other problems. It's a coping.
Sarah says, so true, it is effortless when your mind makes the connection or switch, and you never look back. Yes, that's talking about your vegan effortless. Yes,
childhood dream come true.
Effie says, wonderful work, so interesting, thank you. And I was hoping that people would find your experience and your ability to help people interesting, and that people will get something out of this tonight. And Jam says, not any kebabs in McDonald's has made me depressed. Serious, meat is like a drug.
Because he's trying,
interesting.
Struggling.
Okay, Jam, that's interesting. That's something that probably he needs to do a session with you on. Maybe. But that's interesting, because maybe we could talk about that a little bit just at the moment while that's come up. So meat is like a drug. Is that actually correct?
Well, I mean, I'm not a nutritionist.
An addiction?
Yeah. We use food to suppress our feelings or the chemicals in the food, like the sugar, to make us feel good.
So it's another escape mechanism?
Yeah. And if it just carries on, it gets more into sort of eating disorder sort of thing. But we know, I'm not a nutritionist, but most of us know about food additives and what they put in food to keep us, processed food anyway. It's full of addictive stuff, sugar and salt. You don't eat a sausage from kebab from without all that junk.
So if somebody like Jam is saying that he's feeling depressed from stopping eating meat, that would be like a withdrawal.
Irritability.
And irritability,
needing it more, and not that fix. They've become dependent on that type of food to give them.
So, any advice for somebody experiencing that? Like, I'm not
complete lifestyle detox, meditation, yoga. I mean, I suppose everything that we're going to talk about in terms of self-care, looking after your mental health, can apply to all of us with any struggle.
Okay. Now, I've been looking at your notes of different mental health situations that people might be facing, and in particular, 3 that apply to vegans as something that's probably more prominent because we've chosen a lifestyle that's not always easily endorsed or that. I mean, it is more now, but it's something that, especially for a long-term vegan, could have been a challenge for a long time with friends and family and all the rest. So should we, how should we tackle this? Would you like to...
just read some of my notes out?
Well, I'd like you to we want to start off with evidence-based, what you've called here, evidence-based factors that contribute to a lack of well-being and mental health issues. So talk us through this. I want to know about this.
Okay, so there's various factors that contribute to our lack of well-being or having mental health issues. Okay, so the stuff I'm going to list, most of us know this stuff, right?
Right.
But there's 3 in particular that it'd be good to explore, what you just mentioned, that particularly affect us. And I don't think we quite realise we are consistently exposed to 3 factors in particular, just by being vegan or being an activist.
Now, before we get to them, I've just, because I want to just, while it's current, get to Jam's comment there that's saying that vegan food is lacking in protein. Actually, Jam, that is not correct. If I became a fully fledged vegetable, I'd cook like a crackhead. Protein is essential for me. All vegetables, all food has protein. Vegans get enough protein from just eating a good whole food plant-based diet. And there is plenty. Look, just off the top of my head, I would say go to nutritionfacts.org. Go there and have a look at the articles, the peer-reviewed research, all of that. But protein is not anything to worry about. It's actually carbohydrates are the thing you have to keep an eye on. So, but protein, there is plenty of it, and the problem that we have in the Western world is most people eat too much protein, especially meat eaters, and that causes a whole heap of health issues because of it. So, so we'll get on to the. We're still going along with nutrition. Again, no. You have all the amino acids that you need. For those who are watching this on YouTube later, Jam has asked about missing amino acids. No, you have all the amino acids that you need in a vegan lifestyle, and it is endorsed. Vegan lifestyle from birth onwards is endorsed by several of the nutritional organisations around the world, the major nutritional organisations that have studied it and said that a vegan diet is completely fine. So you don't have to, and as Effie says, Harry is still alive. He has not died of protein deficiency. 38 years, actually 39 years, Effie. So, okay.
All right.
And we can discuss, Jam, that is something, private message me later and I can give you links just to back up what I'm saying now, that you won't have an issue with protein. In fact, protein deficiency is so rare that there is a word for it, which is nearly unpronounceable. It's a long Japanese sounding word that a friend of mine taught me about 5 years ago, and I bet you nobody's heard of it. Yeah, you've never heard of it. I'd never heard of it up until 5 years ago for protein deficiency because it is that rare. But there is a word for it, and it almost never presents as a health issue. So don't have to worry about that. Okay.
Okay.
So we're talking about
the factors that contribute to having mental health issues or lack of well-being.
Take it away.
All right. So I'll just mention a few. Like I said, some of us will know anyway. So again, we mentioned alcohol, substance abuse, stress from work, relationships, financial pressures, a physical illness, loss or bereavement, poor diet and lifestyle habits, childhood trauma. So the next three are the ones that what I'm referring to, that is that vegans are consistently exposed to.
Now, before we get to those three, there is a scale of, you mentioned loss and bereavement there, right? There is a scale that measures the impact of different events on us. And I believe loss and bereavement is top of the scale or second in the scale. I can't remember. But are you familiar with that?
It's pretty high up there on loss and bereavement.
As soon as you mentioned it,
your mental health.
And obviously it would be, yes.
Yeah.
And Sarah mentions the China study by Dr. T. Colin Campbell in reference to Jam asking about amino acids and that. Yeah. Okay, so here it is. Here it is, what you've been waiting for half an hour.
Thanks, Jam.
Thanks, Jam.
All right. So trauma.
Okay, these are the three factors that vegans are more likely to experience consistently and more of.
Yes.
Right.
Just for being vegan, just for being an activist, right?
Okay.
So trauma in adulthood, and then how it can trigger our childhood trauma if we have any. Yeah.
Okay,
and we'll expand on each of these in a sec.
Fine.
I thought I'll just mention the other two, and then we can sort of just have a bit of a discussion of each one.
Yeah.
So then social isolation and loneliness, and then discrimination and stigma.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Probably any long-term vegan is going to put their hand up and go, I've been through that. Been there. Maybe
still being there.
still there. Yeah, probably still there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's any given time you can be exposed to these right?
That's true. And it can come out of left field from people that we didn't expect.
Exactly.
Family members, workmates, neighbours, friends that we were getting along well with, and all of a sudden, there's a curveball.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
And we're left going whoa.
Yeah, and they're out of your life like that.
Yeah. So those three things, trauma, social isolation, and discrimination, I'm just narrowing them down to make it easier to remember. They are something that, as a vegan, we might be on guard for at all times. And if it comes up again and again, then we're sort of almost switched into a adrenaline-based sort of mode. Is that
so
true?
do you mean like defensive, feeling attacked?
Pre-defensive, because we have an expectation that it's going to happen again.
And at any given time, being vegan or an activist, you're going to be exposed to that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, is it worth me talking a bit about social isolation or loneliness now, or start with trauma, or
let's start with trauma. Let's start with trauma. And Effie says, animal cruelty makes me very depressed. Yes, we're going to be talking about that.
Yeah. So trauma. So, and I'm going to read some of my notes because otherwise I'll go off in tangents.
That's fine. We're all learning. So
the way I like to look at it is that we are vegan because we've made an informed decision to become vegan, right?
Yes.
So we've made this choice. We've made an informed decision. So the definition of informed decision is we've made a decision about something based on an understanding of the facts of a situation.
Right.
All right? So bear with me.
It's good.
Okay.
It's clear.
So we become informed, right, of the facts through a few things. So one of them is by researching and reading about the exploitation and the terror animals go through in these industries like dairy and cosmetic industries and wool industries. You know, we read and we become informed and get these facts through learning about, reading and researching about the abuse that happens in the racing industries, calf roping, rodeos, horse racing, etc. Again, we become informed and get these facts through reading and researching about the devastating impact on our ecosystems and the environment in which the animals live in. Right?
Yes.
And also due to meat consumption alone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we also become informed and get these facts through social media. So social media shows us these facts, doesn't it? It gives us access to graphic images, videos of all of the above, right?
Yes. Yeah.
More, isn't there? We also become informed and get these facts through attending, protests, rodeo protests, slaughterhouses, vigils, where we can see, hear, smell the trauma that the animals are going through.
Yeah.
So, however distressing all that is, right? It's an awakening, right? We know it's an awakening, despite how distressing all of the above is. Vegans often say, they prefer to know the facts and know the truth than be ignorant to the cruelty and the systemized abuse that happens in our society, right? But in knowing all this, in knowing these facts, in becoming informed, in knowing the truth, we can experience trauma ourselves. Because look at the stuff I've just listed.
Yes.
This is intense. It's really sad stuff. Like, it's traumatic.
I think, like Susie says, compassion fatigue is something that is very real.
Very real.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I personally have to limit what I expose myself to.
Same.
Whether it's in person, or whether it's on videos or photos or whatever. Yeah. Or even comments on maybe mainstream news sites from pre-vegans, non-vegans, commenting on a vegan type subject, and I will start reading it to see what some of the general population thinks, and then I'll have to stop after a short while. Because it's pretty depressing. And that's you knowing your limitations, what we talked about earlier, you knowing your boundaries, setting your limits, and we all talk a bit about that, isn't it, when we go through what we can do to take care and manage some of this stuff. That's true. It's very important, isn't it, to know your limitations.
That's it.
Definitely. Without which you can really put yourself in a pickle.
And burn out, mental health issues, etc.
And unfortunately, we do see a lot of this happen. when we follow different social media pages, we do see posts coming up from vegans that have been quite active and that have just reached the point where it's an overwhelm.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. But look, again, then if we've so we by the stuff we just spoke about, we can experience trauma ourselves. Now, if you've had some childhood trauma, abuse, neglect, and so forth, we can get easily triggered by some of these experiences of what we read, what we've seen, what we... Can
we give an example of that?
Watching a graphic image of an animal being abused in a factory farm.
And it might take you back to a similar sort of abuse or something that happened that you experienced?
Vulnerability. You've got no voice as a child.
Right.
That's fundamentally...
Say that again, you've got no voice as a child.
Animals have no voice ever.
Yeah.
Right? So,
interesting.
Yeah, it taps into your vulnerability where you didn't have a voice, where the adults didn't protect you, and that helplessness.
Wow.
That's
powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
That really resonates strongly with understanding for me. That is powerful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have no voice as a child.
Yep.
And you have a sense of vulnerability.
Complete vulnerability, because adults are there to protect you, but yet you're watching an animal being abused by an adult who doesn't have a voice, so that will that will trigger quite easily some of your trauma as a child.
So then, as an adult, that can be re-triggered.
Absolutely, by reading an article. So some people have their limits and won't watch things. I don't watch things. I can't, and that's my choice, and I feel comfortable with that. But even reading something, because it's just as graphic, right? And we want to be informed.
Yes.
We want to be advocates for animals. We want to be educated and help other people understand what sort of abuse goes on in these industries.
Yes.
So we've got to be informed.
Yes.
Like I've just said, not everyone's going to a slaughterhouse. You don't have to go to a slaughterhouse to feel traumatized. By what animals go through.
So whilst we're talking about this very serious subject, there's a whole side conversation going on there, which I'm leaving at the moment because it's a conversation about diet and health and so forth, and we've moved away from that at the moment, but I can address that after the live stream's finished. Effie says, I had no voice as a child, had an abusive father. I just figured that out lately at my father's funeral. Wow. Yeah. And so, okay, if we have a situation like you've just given something that's quite a disturbing thing for a child to see, an animal being mistreated, right?
For an adult to see.
Well, no, but the child might have witnessed their parents being not particularly. What I pictured was the child witnessing their parents mistreating an animal, and then as an adult, that's bringing up that memory.
I mean, that would be traumatic as well, absolutely, but I actually didn't mean that. I meant, so as an adult, we've experienced childhood trauma, and then we are being an activist or being vegan and reading or seeing anything. Watching, for example, a lamb, when they've been hurt and abused in a factory farm, in a slaughter home, watching that child can trigger off our experience when we were a child. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It mirrors
what
we went through, the abuse we went through. It reminds us, it can trigger off.
Like Effie says there that she had an abusive father. So what then might be some of the expression or experience that we have as an adult once we become triggered by that? How might it come out?
So, and that's exactly my next bit.
And that wasn't even planned.
Which is, look, vegans talk about flashbacks, nightmares, difficulty sleeping, because we just can't get certain images out of our head. We have memories of our own childhood. This is even if you haven't had childhood trauma, vegans can still have these experiences of flashback nightmares because they've read something, they've seen something, they've attended a protest. But then if you've had childhood trauma as well, it's further impacting on your well-being. And if there's sorry, no, go ahead.
No, please, have you finished that section? Or
I was just going to say,
because I just wanted to get to Maureen's comment. But
I was just going to say, it's very similar to could possibly be sort of symptoms of PTSD.
Yes, I was thinking.
Yeah,
definitely sounded like it. I mean, you can have flashbacks, and this is going to sound silly, but you can have flashbacks from coming off your bicycle. Or running into a kangaroo on your motorbike or something. That's just a small little event. So if you've been, as a child, if you've been through a repeated pattern of abuse, that's become an ingrained program, I guess. Subconscious.
If you haven't had healing from it, if you haven't had support, if you haven't had some trauma work or healing, then absolutely.
You talk about healing there. One thing I'm going to get to Maureen's comment in a section there. One thing that just occurred to me about the healing, it's crucial, it's needed, but in some cases, would it be possible that the child is not even aware, whether as a child or as an adult, that healing is even needed because that was their normal?
Absolutely. And look, again, and I think somebody mentioned that it wasn't until much later they realised that was the loss of the bereavement, the loss triggered off actually what the abuse they experience, and that's very common actually. And again, going back to vegans and activists, we may not be aware or conscious that we've actually experienced trauma as a childhood. We know it happened, but we may not associate it with, we may not identify that as we were traumatized until we become vegan and we are looking at animals who have no voice. And then it can trigger us.
It brings it up.
It brings it up for us. And then this is an opportunity actually that we can get some healing and that we can.
And we will be talking about healing and support too, because that's a crucial thing to discuss when we're discussing a subject like this. Maureen says, abuse directed at our Facebook posts when we promote non-cruelty can be threatening to animals, our personal companion animals and ourselves, promoting depression and anxiety. Definitely. Right, so the health discussion is still going on behind the scenes there. Effie says, I think it made it easier for me to feel closer to animals because I knew how vulnerable they felt. That's empathy. I love that you were able to take that lesson from it, Effie. That's really good, because that is a sign of a good heart connection there. Because we have many different ways we can respond. And empathy is obviously a positive response, but we could have responded in a way that was self-destructive or outwardly destructive. So, and that would have been another choice that we could have made, So, Sarah says, there's still a conversation going on about health. I'm glad you guys are having a conversation about it. It's really good. It's interesting. Okay, there is a comment that is relevant. Jam says, what I find strange are people that claim to be animal lovers because they have a dog or cat, but don't mind eating a bacon sandwich. And that disassociation, that disconnect, is something that a lot of vegans didn't even realise until they sort of became vegan, and then it all came together. I've heard many people talk about that. What's the terminology for it when you're, it's not disassociation.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's a term for that disassociation where you don't make the connection. Can you remember what the term is? It's a common. No, I can't think what it is. It's okay. So continue on, please.
So then, going back to those three contributing factors that affect our well-being and so forth, was we talked about trauma. Then it's social isolation and loneliness. So and you mentioned this a bit earlier, is that when people become vegan, they lose family and they lose friends. And earlier we talked about I'll grow more. But loss and bereavement, you mentioned earlier, that being high on the list. That's loss. People, I recently speaking to somebody and they said a friend for like decades just lost
gone.
like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So it happens. Then we can feel isolated and alone with some of these feelings, and because people around us aren't particularly supportive, or they just simply don't understand. So we can feel further isolated and alone with our feelings. Then there's also, and this is an interesting one, I think, there's also an attitude amongst some of us, is that when we share our distress and some of these feelings, people will say to each other, well, imagine how the animals feel. Or when I feel these things, when I feel distress, I just remind myself, well, the animals are feeling much worse. And that comes from a good place, right?
Yes.
It comes from a very good place. It's a place to support our fellow, vegans who are going through this distress.
Imagine what the animals are feeling. Yeah.
However, from a mental health perspective, it actually suppresses what we feel. It actually undermines or minimises what we're going through. And in mental health, we know that denial of feelings, suppression of feelings, actually can impact on our mental health tremendously. So I would hope a culture that we could change that over time, where we can still be supportive and kind to each other, but maybe with an attitude of self-compassion and actually supporting with how you're feeling, allowing us to feel those feelings as opposed to suppress it. Because
I'm thinking it's okay to not be okay. That sort of thing. Yes. Which has now become, more accepted in public. So the fact that, because it has to go that way, because I don't know what the current statistics are, but I remember years ago being told suicide statistics, and they were pretty bad, and that was a long time ago, and they were pretty bad back then. And that was just local statistics here on the coast. It's really, it is something that can't be hidden. People's social connection and how they're feeling about themselves needs to be explored and expressed, doesn't it?
Yes. Great. So then,
go on. So into the next one.
Yes. So then the
third one.
Third one is discrimination and stigma. Okay. It's probably a bit self-explanatory, but I'll expand on it anyway. So by definition, discrimination is when a person is treated unfairly or badly because the person is of one particular group. We've all been there.
Yeah. People treat me really badly because I don't have any hair. Sorry, that was pathetic.
And then, by definition, stigma is a negative stereotype. By definition, stigma is a negative stereotype. So, name calling. So we're called hippies, preachers, more recently terrorists.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
That's true.
And at protests, we're told get a job, and people are verbally abusing you, and shouting at you just because they're raising awareness with a placard.
Those sort of protests takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to be in that situation, doesn't it? I mean, have you been in that situation? You've experienced it?
I feel quite comfortable in, believe it or not, in those.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Interesting.
I shouldn't say comfortable, but I'm less distressed in those environments than I am in watching, say, graphic something or.
Okay. So you feel a sense of empowerment or control?
Because I'm there.
Okay, that's good.
And I'm amongst other people experiencing that stuff there.
So it's different things for different people.
Exactly. Yeah.
See, that would
knowing your limitations.
That would trigger me to some extent, being in that situation.
Okay.
I find that personally would probably bring up stuff from my past. So I'd be like, no, I'd rather not be in that environment because I know that I know where my limitations are, which we spoke about earlier.
Yes.
So know what your limitations are, and then work with them in a positive way.
And it's okay to not do it if that's not comfortable for you.
But it has to be. Limitations and boundaries have to be worked in a healthy way. Can you expand on that?
I suppose I feel like what you're saying is avoidance or
avoidance and bringing yourself back into your own social isolation and what they call it self-medication or whatever when you become an alcoholic or whatever, that sort of thing. If that's how you've setting your boundaries or whatever, then that's just self-destructive.
So when we're talking about limits and boundaries, we're exactly, it's done in a supportive way, in a way that's compassionate. You know what what your limits are, what is okay for you, what can help you be the best advocate for an animal. If you're feeling that vulnerable, if that's triggering you too much, if that's evoking too much stuff, don't do that. Do something else instead.
But do something else instead that's healthy, not something else that's avoidance or whatever.
Sure.
That's important. There is and I do want to touch on social connection, because I was watching, I mentioned to you before we went live that I was watching a video today where they were talking about the effects of social connection versus on depressed people versus the effect of taking antidepressants. And it was at least twice as effective for a person to be in a program where they had a structured social connection with other people who had also had anxiety and depression. It was twice as effective as them just being on antidepressants. And I found that really interesting, because what they were saying was that they were, instead of just using the antidepressants to mask the symptoms, they were going back to the reason why the person was depressed, which was the social isolation, and they were addressing that. And that's something that I thought is fantastic. That's the way to approach the mental health issue, is to go, well, how has the person got to this point? You know, what has been the cause of it? Not let's give them an antidepressant and hope they feel better. Because apparently long-term antidepressants aren't necessarily effective. Is that something?
Some medications you build up sort of a tolerance for it, and you have to change a medication. Look, there's always room for medication. There always is. Some people who need it at that time, you know, and that's okay. But what you're saying is it's preventative, and these contributing lists, factors, social isolation and loneliness is on that list. So that what they're saying is that if we don't address that can contribute to our mental health. So
So Maureen says compassion. Compassion is...
And self-compassion for us.
Self-compassion, exactly.
But I just wanted to add to this, only because I'm conscious of the time, is that when you listen to all this stuff that we've experienced, all of this, aren't we actually really damn resilient as a group of people? I mean, in saying all this, it sounds like, oh my God, who will ever become vegan? Whoever's watching is considering it. Actually, we're really resilient because we're doing this still, and it feels so good despite...
Why are we so resilient? I already know the answer, but why do you think we're so resilient?
Love for the animals.
Exactly. Because
we feel this love.
Exactly. Compassion, as Maureen said. We know it's the right thing to do. Just like you knew when you went to your first rally in 1990, it was the right thing to do, right? And you just had to reach the point. So that is what keeps us going. For me, as a long-term vegan, I call it ahimsa. Which is, it's compassion, non-violence in thought, word and deed. That has to be the foundation, so that whenever there was ever in the past an element of doubt in my mind about the path I'd chosen, I just needed to remind myself that there is no other choice. That if I chose any other path, I could not live with myself, because I knew it would not be the right thing to do. So that is, there has to be that foundation there. Cool. So what, as a vegan, what sort of help can we get in dealing with this?
I was just wondering, am I able to maybe just mention this last bit on my notes?
Of course.
Because it might be helpful, and then
please.
Is that so look, I do also wanted to add, so although we're subjected to those three factors that we mentioned, the trauma, the social isolation, discrimination, etc., some of us may be only affected by this stuff only some of the time, and overall we're good, we're all right, but for us, for others, particularly if we're then going through experiencing some of the other factors, then it really can affect our mental health quite a bit. And so some of these, I might just mention some of the symptoms that people can go through, and some of you guys might relate to some of this, is that some of the symptoms may include poor sleep, poor appetite, irritability, anxiety, panic attacks, that lack of motivation, loss of sort of enjoyment in things, feeling overwhelmed, sadness, tearfulness, and this is a particular one for us guys, is feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. And the hopelessness for us is just feeling hopeless as if a government is being exposed to this stuff like live export and they're still not doing anything, some of us can feel, well, what hope is there for the animals? You know,
exactly.
We can feel. So you know, it's. I'm not sure if I should mention some of this stuff now or just go through to what, because of the time.
Let's see. How are we going for time?
5 minutes. Or just go straight to
okay. Well, you've mentioned that there. Let's. I want to.
That's it, or just go straight to
yeah.
Let's. That might.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So
sorry,
what can
thank you, Harry.
So what can we do if
Yes.
we're feeling hopeless, helpless? If we're looking at the world and we're seeing that the change is not fast enough.
Yes.
And we're seeing that there still seems to be a lot of people that don't care or don't know or don't want to know.
Yeah, and we know, you know, we're having some of these other symptoms, and we know our well-being is not feeling good, you know. Is that okay? So I like to put them in kind of two categories. I don't know why, inner and outer. Just makes sense for me when I'm explaining it to other people.
Yeah.
And the inner stuff is you know, things like what we said, self-compassion. Being kind to yourself. Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. Don't deny how you feel. Don't have a go at yourself or feel guilty for needing a break. If you're feeling burnt out, taking that rest, you know, taking that time out. Don't judge yourself for how you're feeling. Trust that you're doing your best. We talked about limits and boundaries. Then sort of more the outer stuff is meditate. There's heaps of free stuff. You've got an app.
There's a good app I use called Insight Timer, which is free. It's the biggest meditation app in the world.
And I just used YouTube because it's just so easy for me, because my phone's always running out of battery, so I just put it on YouTube. And kind of the stuff to probably topics would be self-compassion, loving kindness.
I want to add in there that a sense of purpose. Other than just knowing that what is the right thing to do by all living beings, which is what we already should have as a foundation as vegans, right? But a sense of purpose in, you know, what is the meaning of life? So I want to add in my take on the spiritual side of things. For me, has been absolutely essential. And, you know, I followed a spiritual path for nearly 30 years, and that has really made it so that when I look at the world and I go, holy crap, why are things the way they are? I've actually got some answers, because I follow a spiritual path that actually helps explain why people act the way they do, why things are the way they are, why there's the good and the bad in the world, how we can detach ourselves from it, how we can look at it, how we can find a sense of inner peace and understanding of why things are the way they are. That for me is absolutely crucial. Without that, I don't think I could have just handled things the way that I've been able to over the years, because otherwise I would have ripped my hair out.
And look, I totally agree with you,
You didn't
Harry.
even get that. I would have ripped my hair out.
I was just feeling what you were saying.
You were too.
I was in the moment.
You were.
But but I totally agree with you, and that was that's pivotal in looking after my mental health. I didn't mention that because I knew that was you're the man for that, and I wanted to run out of paper. But yeah, absolutely. So if one can
studies have shown there comes a time in every person's life. Sadly, it's usually too late. Sadly, it's usually on somebody's deathbed where they question basically what was life for, and you know, I wish I'd sort of done things differently and all the rest. Don't leave it till you're on your deathbed to question why the hell we're here in the first place and why there's so much evil in the world and how we can understand why it happens. Don't leave it till it's, you know, don't go through your life angry, bitter, depressed, because you don't understand on a much deeper level why things are happening. It's really, I just implore you to look at the spiritual side of things, to dig deep and, you know, find what resonates with you and the teachers that resonate with you. In relation to that, actually, there is a wonderful vegan Buddhist teacher, and tomorrow night I'm going to see his film, which is called Walk With Me. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I always have trouble with pronouncing his name. But he's. I love that he's teaching compassion and that he is vegan, which is not always the case with Buddhist teachers, even though it should be. So there are people leading the way, shining a light. And for me, from a young age, it was Gandhi, actually. Gandhi I just totally resonated with his ability to promote non-violence and to stand up to adversity without having to create further issues. He was just able to do such amazing things. So find somebody that resonates with you and look for the deeper meaning in life, because otherwise you're just skimming along the surface. You're just trying to cope with what we've talked about tonight. You're trying to cope with the things that are coming up, right? And what you talk about is essential, right? We need to be able to cope with it. We need to have strategies. This is essential. This is what you're sharing tonight is fantastic. This is what we need to know.
Yeah.
But we, at some point, have to go deeper and go, but why the hell are the animals being treated this way? Why are there people inflicting such evil? Right? We have to go to that point when we're ready, and to understand why it's happening, and to give us a sense of peace. Because I've always, I'm doing a rant here, but I've always, from a really young age, had questions, and the questions were not getting answers as I was growing up. I couldn't find the answers in the people around me. And when I started following a spiritual path that was giving me the answers, that's where my peace came from. That's where I was able to then sort of work on myself a lot better, because I wasn't in a frazzled state all the time. You know? So I implore you to look at that possibility.
Yeah, and most people say that. They do lots of different things, and then once they've taken a more of a spiritual path and had some therapies, well, that's always helpful. Then people say, look, therapy isn't that too great? Yeah, I think we all should do it. And that comes to a couple of my other things that I was going to say about some help.
Yes.
And I think Susie Bailey mentioned about we need to be resilient.
Animals need us to be resilient.
You know, and we become resilient by taking care of ourselves, because we can't do what we feel so passionate about and be effective vegans and activists without really prioritizing care for ourselves. It's paramount.
Exactly.
It has to be there on the same level as doing a protest or doing something on social media or being vegan. You know, really, to me, it's like neck to neck. There's no doubt. So just a couple of other things is like self-help books. So Claire Mann and Dystopia. She's a vegan psychologist.
Claire Mann with Dystopia. I love her. Love her stuff.
But there's lots of other books. I won't go into book recommendations and but again, talk to someone. The isolation and loneliness is so important. If you've got family and friends you can speak, reach out. If not, see a professional. We pay our taxes. We live in a society where we need, why not get help from an expert? We go and see a personal trainer to get our physical health in gear. You know, why not? We don't get professional help to get our emotions.
There is no stigma to it.
Yeah,
it's helping ourselves.
It's helping ourselves. And just to mention then, some of us at work have an employment assistant program where you get free psychology sessions, about 6 or 10 a year, or you can go to your your GP and get a mental health plan, and you get up to 10 sessions a year. If you work, you do pay a gap fee, like $30-40 or whatever you can afford. It works on your income. If you're not working, then you don't pay or whatever. Utilize this. You know, do it.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
And just to say, you don't have to get a vegan. Don't have to have a vegan psychologist, because people then say, do I have to? I'm surprised no one's asked this yet. Should I get a vegan psychologist? No, it's not necessary. If you have one, great. It's more important that they're trauma informed, like they have experience with trauma, because that's like them saying every psychologist who deals with the trauma you've had, so you've had experienced rape or you've been in the army or whatever, that they have to be in the army and they've had to be raped to help you.
Yes, I see your point.
Trauma is symptoms, isn't it? The stuff what we've talked about, and the feelings that are associated with the kind of distress that we can experience. So
I love your passion coming through now too.
I'm talking quickly, even though
no, I love
me not to talk so quickly and breathe, but I'm also looking at the time.
That's all right. It can be the vegan hour and a bit. Because this is very important, as we said at the beginning and we said several times. Mental health is very important for anyone. And especially as vegans, we can hit more of it. There's a couple of comments there. Susie asked, what's a good book to start with, Harry? I would have to say any book that talks or deals with the life of Gandhi is a really good starting point. If you want to be inspired in how to stand by your principles and just just to stand by your principles and to maintain compassion against adversity. Definitely, that's a good starting point. Effie says, what helps, actually, Ben Kingsley in the Gandhi movie. Oh, wow. Just wow.
You have to watch that.
You've got to watch, there you go. You don't even need the book. Just watch the movie and tell me you're not inspired by that. That is incredible. Effie says, what helps me is to have inspiration, dreams, ideas, creating and planning wonderful things like cooking classes, art classes, decorating my house, planning get-togethers and dinners, do things you love, get involved with wonderful things, throw away your TV. Good idea. I also listen to Abraham Hicks a lot. Wish she was vegan though. Ali says, yes, she's awesome. And Maureen says, thanks guys, I love this show tonight. Oh my gosh, I resonate so much with your questioning of why on earth animals are treated so appallingly. The love we have for animals creates so much of my purpose. Thanks for recognising and explaining so many issues and strategies, Ree, and great reminder of spirituality, Harry. Profound episode. Wow, thank you. I think it was a profound episode because of Ree. And Jam says, people used to say I look like Gandhi. Oh, thanks for that, Jam. Now, I want to say...
well, he is skinny and Indian.
Okay.
Well, he was when he was a kid. So,
so I do want to say, if people have got further questions, you are happy to have them ask them? Absolutely. Or even to message you privately?
Yes,
okay. So Ree's happy because your level of experience and is crucial and helpful. So feel free to contact Ree. She's very approachable. And was there anything else that you wanted to finish up with? We've covered... I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about. We will probably do... maybe later this year another episode on this, because there's a lot that in the notes that we haven't even scratched the surface of. And once I got talking, that was the end of it in any case. So I want to, firstly, I want to say, with my sore arm, I want to say thank you. No, it's all right. It's this one. I want to say thank you so much for coming on and explaining to us the importance of this and a little bit about how to handle it. I want to thank everyone that's come on and asked questions and commented as well. And let's keep this subject alive, because it is very, very important, and we do come up against it a lot in the vegan community and in the general community. So this episode of the Vegan Hour, of course, will be on YouTube probably by tomorrow night, so you'll be able to rewatch it then. And in 2 weeks' time, I will be back with episode 12 on Tuesday the 25th of June, and this is going to be Victoria and Julian from Heads Over Hooves Animal Sanctuary in northern New South Wales. So I haven't gotten down there yet myself, but I do intend to at some stage. So instead of me getting down there, I'm bringing them here. So that'll be in 2 weeks' time. We're going to be finding out about Heads Over Hooves. And Sarah says another episode with Ree would be awesome. Definitely, we have to do it. Yeah. Would you come back and do another episode?
Yes, and maybe people can type into you
do questions beforehand.
What they'd like to focus more on, maybe.
Excellent.
Would that be something they should ask you or me or whatever, and then from there we can...
Great suggestion. Excellent. Well, with that, we will see you. I will see you in another 2 weeks' time. And remember, and Ree's practiced and she's got it. That is great. Remember to live vegan and save lives. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.
Thank you. Fix.
Is there any... You saw it first here, folks.
What we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. Oh, I love that. It's classic. Oh, a bit of humour coming. Oh, should I attempt to fix this? Here we go. The Harry Quick Fix. You see it live. Here it is. The Harry Quick Fix. It'll last 5 minutes. Anyway.